All right, we are now recording the meeting. Rob, you're up.
Oh, man. Okay, I guess the first thing is we have to call to order the April 6th meeting of the Town of McCandless Planning Commission. I think, I'm not sure I have the latest agenda. So with that a little bit, RJ.
Oh, sorry, you must have cut off for me for a second.
Yeah, I don't have the agenda with me. Can you put it up?
Sure, yeah. 1 second. I see we just had one more of our members join. Let me cue his microphone. Okay.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Jonathan.
I will share my screen briefly for the agenda and then take it down once
Okay.
we start. So the first item up here is the review and potential recommendation for a lot consolidation application for the Lucot, I hope I'm saying that right, plan of lots. I believe we also have the property owner here tonight. Let me find him and send him a mic and camera request. All right.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Greg.
Hi, RJ.
So just as a quick introduction, Greg is here. He's got 3 properties that are all adjacent. Basically have been functioning as a single property, you know, in all but official parcel recording. He is looking to put a pool on, which has triggered, you know, a review of the zoning, and that's when everyone kind of noticed, oh, hey, your property is basically chopped up into 3 different lots, so we can't review this as we normally would if your property was contiguous completely. So he worked hard to get I believe, a surveyor engineer together to get this recording plan on time for his pool install. Have I got that all right, Greg?
You have it all right, RJ. Thank you.
All right. So we do have a clean engineering review letter at this point. Is that correct, Mr. Deiseroth?
Yes. We originally reviewed the plan. We had about 8 or 9 comments, general, just small technical comments. The latest plan that was revised of March 30th, 2021 addresses all the technical requirements of the McCandless ordinance.
Oh, I will turn it back to you, Rob.
Does anybody have any comments, questions, concerns about the proposed lot consolidation plan?
Yeah, I do, just because I want to understand what I'm looking at here. I see the plat here, and there is something called lot number 1, 11,362 square feet. And then that to the north or on top of that is another parcel. Is that what is being consolidated down with lot number 1? Or someone described to me what the consolidation consists of?
Sure.
Yeah, so
Go ahead, RJ.
sorry, who's I didn't see you on screen. Who is that?
I think that was Dan asking the question.
Okay. I just thought I was speaking over somebody who was about to answer. So
That was Greg.
Greg, please go ahead.
I think that might have been me, RJ.
Oh, okay. All right. This is going to be one of those nights on a Zoom meeting. Once you get enough people on screen, it turns fun.
Yeah.
All right, so here, I'll answer the question. I'm sorry, Mr. Cordum. So what you're looking at is the main lot here labeled lot 1, as you referenced. That is essentially where the applicant's current house is sitting on. That's, I guess, sort of a combination of what we call bingo lots. I'm told that once upon a time you could win these properties at bingo downtown, which is why there are so many little lots in this neighborhood that are so thin compared to a normal lot today. So essentially this lot 1 is some combination of a couple of these bingo lots, and the applicant's property also includes what's labeled on this plan is lot 30 and lot 31. Those are two separate lots that would be consolidated all into this one single lot one piece.
So essentially, the property will run from Tyler Street all the way through to Apex Lane.
Which is a paper street, but yes.
Okay. Okay, so I now I understand what I'm looking at. Thank you.
Yep.
There's also a little box down at the bottom. It says area table that gives the particulars on the summation of the areas related to particular lots that are being consolidated.
Okay, thank you. No further questions for me.
Do we have a motion to approve?
Do we have any comment from the public?
That's a good question. I have not yet had anyone sign up to speak on this property. Right now, I just have a couple people signed up for Pine Creek.
Okay, seeing none, I have a motion to approve or reject, or motion to approve.
I move to approve.
Seconded.
Ready? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, lot consolidation.
All right, Mr.
Ready to
Lucat,
go.
am I saying your name right, by the way? Is it Lucat?
You are RJ. Yep.
All
you're
right.
correct.
Okay,
So
we'll be all over for the, I'm gonna say we'll all be over for the pool party, so let us know when it is.
Absolutely. It's coming quickly.
Good
Hopefully
luck.
hopefully the good weather stays, right? I'm not wasting it
I'm
now.
gonna say what
Right.
we're having this week, what they're having this week's a good sign for the pool.
I hope so.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, and so, Mr. Lucat, we will have you back on Monday at the town council meeting. Very similar process. Feel free to reach out to the office if you have any questions in the meantime, though.
Thank you, RJ. I appreciate all your help. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. All right, RJ, I did find an agenda that has the Ray Jones
Yes.
plan lots as the next item. Is that still
That's
right?
correct. Yes.
Okay. All right. The agenda I have is dated the 17th of March. That's why I wasn't sure if there had been a change.
Oh. Huh.
Well,
Well, I,
that's what
we've got this, the plan that we just did, Ray Jones, a conditional use application, and then
Right.
continued discussion of two more development plans. Is that accurate to what you have?
No, I just have the first three. I don't have anything listed below the conditional.
Yeah, that was
use,
the
so-
original agenda that came out. It's been up and amended since then.
Okay, that's why I thought I missed something. It probably came out in email. I just didn't print it or have it. So I'm good till we get to there. So, all right, the next is a preliminary and final approval of a consolidation and subdivision application for a plan known as the Ray Jones Plan of Lots. Property is located at 10496 and 10500 Old Villa Drive. You guys okay if I don't read all the parcel numbers? Or do I
That's
need to
fine.
read those? Huh?
No, that's okay.
Okay, so I'll turn it over to whoever's gonna go from there.
All right, so like I said, we've got a lot of people on this Zoom tonight. So based on the screen names, I'm gonna take a wild guess as to who the applicant is on here. We will try again if I get it wrong.
Okay.
All right, and I've sent a microphone request. There you are. Mr. Jones, are you the Jones in question?
Yes, I am. You got the right guy.
All right. Is there anyone else on the call who we should also queue?
No, no one from our end.
Okay.
You know, RJ, you could always have the applicants also put their names in the chat box, just so you knew who all to include.
Okay.
Just-
Oh, yeah,
just-
yeah, that's a
Just
good idea.
Suggestion, so then you don't have to go through this asking every time and waiting.
Right, right. Yeah, that's a good idea, actually. If the other folks on the agenda wouldn't mind giving me a summary of who they need to queue, that would be great while we're doing this one. All right, so just some brief background on this one. This is the second lot consolidation plan that has come to the commission tonight. From what I understand, there are 6 properties total involved, 2 property owners. And they are looking to consolidate them down into 3 lots total. This is over by the intersection of Babcock and Oldville Drive. Engineering review letter came back clean already. Mr. Dizeroth, if you have anything else to add, feel free.
For the planning commission's edification, so what we have here is a total of 6 different parcels. 2 of the parcels front on Old Villa Drive, and the other parcel fronts on Babcock Boulevard, which is the larger parcel. And that larger parcel is adding some acreage to the 2 lots that exist on Old Villa. So this is what I'll call a subdivision and a consolidation, since we're subdividing part of other lots and putting them together. And then at the same time, we're consolidating all the various lots that make up the larger parcels. So what we end up is 3 lots. One's 3.2 acres, one's about 3/4 of an acre, and the third one is 1.26 acres. So we had some minor comments that Tate Engineering addressed, and the current plan, as we see it, meets the requirements of the ordinance.
Hey, Dan, on this, I don't see where the existing lot lines are being extinguished.
Yeah, they're there, Rob. They're just really faint. They have the numbers
'Cause
on
normally,
them.
like if you,
Yeah, we
okay,
could
if you
have
look
them
at the one we
Z'd
did
them.
before,
Yeah, they're just really
yeah, if you look at how yeah, I would, Dan, like if you looked at the one we just did before, there was actually a note and a tag to each line.
right.
It said, lot line to be, what was the word?
Extinguished.
Yeah. I mean, now that you tell me, I see a 3 and or a L4 and an L3 next to a very light line.
Right.
It would definitely seem to make things a little simpler if we could, have those designated a little bit better. Just so it's clear when you understand which piece goes to what.
Yeah, they have a table down below, Rob, that kind of summarizes all the
I
areas.
see that.
Would you like to see like a Z line?
I
or
see that,
something
but
on-
again, I like something that has a tag to it or something a little better to help clarify, because it shows like the proposed property lines, the new ones in dark,
Right.
but it is a little difficult to figure out what lines are going
Well, why don't we have it do
away and where.
why don't we have it do the same as the previous one, which would be typically you put a Z on them and just say
Right.
lot line to be extinguished.
I would think that would be a much more concise way to make sure in the future everybody understands what lines go to where.
Okay, no problem. We can have them do that.
Yeah, that's just a drafting change. I mean, it's not going to change the approved plan.
Correct.
That's when I looked at it, I wasn't sure where lines were that weren't the lines that were going away. But now that you say what they are, I know what they are.
So what's the purpose
That's
of
my only comment.
what's the purpose of this consolidation and subdivision?
The purpose of it, my neighbor, Don Ray, and I share some property lines. A number of years ago, he bought property that's away from the street, behind our 2 existing lots. And I asked him if I could add on a piece to make my backyard bigger. He owned probably 4+ acres back there. So he said, yeah, we can do that process. Meanwhile, since he had owned that land already, he had actually extended a fence from his original property. He has a pool in his backyard. He extended a fence onto the adjacent parcel that he owned. And he said, well, maybe it would make sense to also extend that property line as well, in case he ever wants to sell his house. Because if there's going to be a consolidation done, it made sense to do it now rather than later, since it would be one process. So basically, we each moved our 2 back lot lines onto his adjacent property is what it was. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it does.
And is there a plan to develop lot 1?
I'm not sure which lot 1 is, but no, Don's actually out of town right now. He's held that property for, I don't know, 15, 20 years. And he liked it and I liked it because it's all woods back there. There's nothing back there at all. Originally, there had been a home there, but it was decrepit and he had it raised a long time ago. And it's just sitting there. It's just regular property now. So I don't believe he has any current plans for the property.
Lot 1 has 3.4
Okay.
acres. It's the largest lot.
Yeah, that was a consolidation, I believe, of multiple parcels into one that then front on Babcock Boulevard. But no, I don't believe Don has any plans for that property yet. If he does, I want to buy it.
Is lot one totally owned by Mr. Ray, the 3.4 acres?
Yes, it is. So he owns the site of his house next to mine. He's the house on the corner of Babcock and Old Villa. I'm the second house in. And then he owns that piece behind both of our properties.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, any comments from the community, RJ?
I do not have anyone signed up to speak.
Okay. Motion to approve the lot. I guess it's not just consolidation though, Dan, right? It's a,
Subdivision.
It's a subdivision and a consolidation. It's
Consolidation.
just called the Ray Jones Plan of Lots.
okay. So consolidation subdivision, Ray Jones Plan of Lots. Motion to approve,
I'll make the motion to approve.
second,
I'll second.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Who is the second again?
Any
Sorry, I was
opposed?
looking away for a second.
Jonathan, second.
Jonathan,
Thank you.
how dare you look away?
I know.
I think it was unanimous.
Okay.
Will you contact Tate Engineering for that additional marking on the schematic that's there, or?
Yeah, we can
I'm not quite sure
notify
what to ask
them.
for.
It'll probably be easier for us to just say, yeah, because we know what that means. So yeah, I've got Mr. Jones, I've got you on I believe the Monday council meeting, assuming those Z lines, that'll be really easy to add that to the plan, so that shouldn't hold you up. I will double check that we've had the county sign off on the plan as well already. I'm pretty sure that we already got their review letter back, so you should be good to go for Monday's council meeting as well.
That's this coming Monday, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And what time is that?
7:30.
Do I need to be available for that meeting?
Well, Madam President.
I can't see there being any problems, but it wouldn't hurt to be there just in case someone has a question. You don't want to get hung up just because somebody had a question and nobody had an answer.
And that will be a Zoom meeting also?
It is.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
And
It'll be
RJ
posted online as well.
And RJ, will you send me an invite as you did for this one?
Yes, I'll make a note right now. I also wouldn't mind a reminder email if you happen to remember at the end of
I will
last week, because
remember.
somebody else sends the Zoom invites for that meeting. So
Okay,
I'll make sure you get on the list.
I don't anticipate any problem, but
Okay.
just to keep things moving smoothly for you.
thank you. And that's a 7 p.m. also,
7:30.
7:30, okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
You ready for the last one, RJ, or the next one?
Yeah, you've got the conditional use next, right?
Yeah, conditional use application for advertising signage billboard for Pittsburgh Outdoor Properties, also known as Steel City Billboards, properties located at Vestal Park Lane.
I've got several folks here that I am bringing on camera and microphone. And thankfully, they have already sent me their list of names in the chat.
Good job.
All right, so let's see. I've got one more. I think might be on the next page. Chris Adams and Brian. Okay, there's one. Mitch, I am guessing that you are with James, right?
That's correct.
Okay, I was looking for your name in the squares and I wasn't finding you. That would probably make sense why. Okay, I think that Chris is Chris Adams. I believe that's the last one.
Yeah, that's correct.
All right, and FYI to anyone who is presenting, you can turn your camera on and off, but once I turn your microphone on, you can turn it off, but you can't turn it back on without me sending you a microphone request. So just some fun security features. So if any of you need to turn your mics off, send me a chat message to let me know to turn your mic back on. We'll do it that way. Okay. All right, I think we've got everyone here.
Okay.
So this application has already come in some form through the zoning hearing board, not as a conditional use, but they had presented an application for several variances regarding setbacks. The background on the whole reason for submitting a conditional use is that advertising signs, as our code refers to them, but you can think of it as a billboard, essentially. Billboards are treated as a conditional use. They are only permitted in the C3 district as the principal use of a property. And essentially they get treated like a land development when it comes to setbacks. So this piece of property that the applicants are proposing to put a static billboard on is very small. It's about 1,000 square feet. Seems to be a bit of a mystery parcel that was created at some point beside the overpass for 19. And you know, right in between that and Vestal Park Lane, right when you're coming out of the one-way section. Not much that you can do with it, but I suppose you could put a billboard on it if you got the setback variances, which they did. And so now to move forward, they would need to have a successful conditional use application and subsequent land development application that would be submitted presumably after the conditional use application, you know, theoretically was successful. So this is the first stop on the way to all of that. And unless anyone has any particular questions for me now, I'll turn it over to the applicant.
RJ, I have one. Who owns the land?
I believe that the applicant has purchased it at this point. Is that correct?
That's correct.
The owner is Pittsburgh Outdoor Properties LLC, and that's owned by the Folks family. And the Folks family also owns Steel City Billboards, which would be a tenant with their billboard structure on the property.
Okay, so the purchase has already taken place.
Yes.
I mean, the property you own, it's not like you're buying it on a condition of the approval. Okay.
Yes,
Just trying to
that's
understand the background for the land.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a question. Just exactly where is this located? You know, is it at the fork there? Vestal Park Lane is difficult to find on Google Maps, so I tend to try and research that. Where's it located? In relation to, say, Sarver, if you start at Sarver Lane.
Okay. Mr. Folks, could you maybe explain? If you have the binder, do you have our set of exhibits?
Yes.
I do.
Like this?
1 second, let me pull that
I
up.
think if you turn to exhibit 10, actually 10, 11. Oh, great.
This will do, right?
There we
Hey,
go.
thank you, RJ.
Excellent.
Thank you, RJ.
There you go.
Right.
Perfect.
Okay. Did that answer your question? That was up so fast?
Yes.
I didn't even pick up the problem. Okay, as long as it answers your question then.
It does. Thank you.
All right. Are there any other preliminary questions before we walk this, walk through it? If not, so first of all, I'm sure it goes without saying that this application, RJ puts a lot of work into this before it gets in front of you, thus making this hopefully an efficient proceeding. So I felt that that effort should be acknowledged. So Exhibit 1, just for purposes of the record, is the decision of the zoning hearing board granting the necessary front yard, rear, side, back setback requirements for this property. Exhibit 2 is a narrative statement in which it is what we did was we walked through all of the requirements of the all of the zoning requirements of the ordinance. As RJ said, this will be followed by a site plan application, which we're not intending to address this evening. The property is vacant. It does not now, nor has it ever had a numerical address. Probably no reason for one, since it's 1,000 square feet. It's in the the C3 Highway Commercial District. It's actually, it's 1,002.52 square feet. It's adjacent to Perry Highway near State Route 19, and it has a concrete support structure for the ramp at the rear of the property. It's been purchased by Pittsburgh Outdoor Properties since August of 2019. As I said, it'll be leased to Steel City Billboards. And as RJ said, this will be a static sign. It will not be an LED sign. The proposed height is 26 feet, and 180 square feet will be the area of the sign face. And this will be the only use of the property. The ordinance permits 200 square feet of sign face of area of a sign face. Will be just under that. Let's see. So I have to ask my clients here. Do we have someone from Formetco here tonight?
Yes. Chris Adams.
Okay. Oh, I see. I see Chris. He's
and I
unmuted.
think, and I
That's
believe
okay.
Brian Jeffries also.
Okay, and as once we received Mr. Deiseroth's review letter, one of the items for which additional information was requested was the light study. So Mr. Adams is here, and in a minute I will ask him to explain the light study. And we did submit that, but we also understood that that was not something that we expected Mr. Deiseroth to have reviewed by this evening, because his letter said that that was not going to happen. There won't be any flashing lights. There won't be any changeable copy. This is more of a conventional static billboard.
But it will be lit.
It will be, yes, it will be illuminated, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the site, you can access it from Vestal Park Lane or from Perry Highway. Let's go to, you have the review letter. Exhibit 5, the review letter is from Mr. Deiseroth, and he can address that, of course. Exhibit 5 is it shows the setbacks as will be provided by the variances. We have Mr. Altmeter here if there are any questions with regard to that. Exhibit 6, which we provide you, are the details of the structure itself. If there are any questions on that, Mr. Folks can address that. Let's go to Exhibit 7, which is the light study, and perhaps I could ask Mr. Adams now to walk us through exhibits 7 and 8, which is your lighting study.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
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 Yeah, I believe the first light study shows an 18-foot tall by 10-foot wide wallscape or banner. The light fixture that's being used is a Cree Cool White 90 with sign optics. So it's designed to illuminate specifically the billboard ad itself. There is some light spillage to the left and right, but if you look into the on the chart there, it shows the amount of foot candles that's being projected. Majority of it is at the base of the board. The structure is the light will be mounted 7 foot out and 2 foot down. I'm not sure what else there is that you guys want to know about the light output on that, but
So 7 foot out from the sign and 2 foot below the sign.
correct.
So when I look at this, I'm looking at a section on exhibit 3. It's called elevation view. You're showing the total pole height to be 20, or total height of the sign to be 26. You have 18 feet of it being the sign. So that leaves 8 feet left to be from grade to the bottom of the sign. Do my high level math here. And if you're 2 feet below that, that means this light's going to be 6 feet off the ground.
That's correct.
Doesn't seem very safe. We have kids and all kinds of activities at Vestal Field at all times of the day. And I can see some kids trying to jump on it and do monkey bars on it.
Well, I mean, it's at 6 feet. I can see that, but there's nothing that kids could. I mean, how tall is a kid? I guess. I mean,
Believe me, they can be 6 feet out here. I mean,
I wish I was. I mean, if that's a concern, we can always raise that up another foot to make it 7 feet. That's no issue.
well, when I look at this section, I'm not quite sure what this 24-inch dashed thing is below the sign.
Okay, so
There's 18 feet of the sign.
Right. So that 24 inches is the metal apron or skirting of the sign, and we would have our name on the back of that. That's the purpose, to show who the owner of the sign is for. So that's the separation between the sign itself and where the light will actually be.
So again, that's the bottom of that is 6 feet off the ground,
Right, that's correct.
right?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, I mean, that seems way too low to me. I mean, I'm not sure I have a say in it, but that doesn't seem to be. I would think you want anything that could be reached to be at 8 feet. That's my 2 cents, but I'm not the final say. So,
You know, if a child is there at Vestral Park and the highway there, their danger is if they're walking around the highway. That's probably the primary concern. Not dismissing that concern. Your concern.
I mean, there's a gymnastics store right next to this.
What's that?
There's a gymnastic place right next to it, right? I mean, unless it's closed.
Well, it's across Vestral Lane. Across Vestral Lane, there is a dance studio.
James and Mitch, I'm not sure. Is it an option to be able to do top mount?
Yeah, I mean, we could do a top mount where the light illuminates to the bottom,
Okay.
That would kill it, I would think. Yeah, I think that would solve a lot of problems.
I agree.
Yeah, that doesn't change anything. I mean, we'd be fine with that,
Yeah, I probably got a little lost in the conversation because we were talking about lighting, and now I think I understand, Mr. Gartner, that your concern was the light being so low. Is that correct?
The arm for the light being at 6 feet off.
I see.
The ground.
Tempting monkey bar.
Was it?
Okay.
Very.
Do you feel that would be satisfied if the light were mounted on the top, which would be at 26 feet?
I think we
that's a
don't
lot
want
better
any,
spot for it.
yeah, I think we don't want any structure 6 feet off the ground, you know, high enough or low enough where an active child would be able to grab onto that, you know, especially the active children in that area.
I think Sir Rob's right. It would have to be at least 8 foot. I can, with your arm, I'm a 6 foot, and with my arm extended, I'm almost 7 foot. I mean, I have a 7 foot reach, and then to jump just a little bit, I think you would want at least 8 foot, like Rob said.
Yeah, I'm not sure how this,
high is the top mount?
What if we had? Well, that's just where they would put the sign, but it would be at about.
Yeah, we could do either one. I'm sorry, did you have a question there, RJ?
Yeah, since you all mentioned top mount lighting and how you thought that would maybe solve the problem, what's the height differential, or the way that, like, how is the structure shaped differently, or how much higher is it to solve this concern?
Right, so the structure wouldn't be shaped any differently. We would just have a bracket system that would come and arch over top of the sign, and basically everything would just be reversed. So instead of doing it on the bottom, we would be doing it on the top. And we'd probably only be maybe 6 inches or so above the top of the sign. So initially it's 26 feet overall. So then just add 6 inches. So that's a 26.6.
Now, but did I understand though that there was a broader concern, not only with the location of the light, but just the sign itself being.
well, yeah, I'm not sure what this 24-inch extension on the bottom of the sign is physically. I don't see a detail that gives me that information. But so again, the bottom of that 24-inch piece of something is still now 6 feet above ground.
Mm-hmm. So
I think what we're saying is we'd like whatever's the bottom of the sign to be at 8 feet, which is where you're at now if you take that 24 inches off.
Okay, well, you know, the height limit for the sign is 35 feet, and our current height is 26 feet. So, Jim and Mitch, could we just raise the sign up? And we've got quite a distance. We can make it higher.
I mean, is this sign, what direction is this sign pointing?
The direction of the sign is facing south, so it's visible for those traveling north into Wexford and farther into McCandless.
So it's not going to be something people are going to see coming off of the ramp.
No,
that goes off of 19 on the McKnight Road there.
No, we actually went out and measured it. You won't even see the top of the sign coming off the ramp. I believe our measurement was around 32 feet at the top of that barrier. So even if we did raise it up 2 more feet, it would sit at 28 feet and it still wouldn't be visible.
So do you think we can get
so again, explain to me what this 24-inch. Explain to me again what this 24-inch.
There's a skirting that goes across just below the bottom of the sign face. And then on the skirting, we typically put our logo so that people know whose billboard it is. It's just a 2-foot skirting.
Do you have a photo of that anywhere? I don't see a photo of that anywhere.
Almost every billboard on the corridor of Route 19 and everywhere else around the United States have a skirting on the billboard to show who actually owns that sign.
Okay.
That's standard.
Okay.
Typically, that's either made of sheet metal or wood. It could be, plywood or.
And that is not part of the 180 square feet.
No, that's correct. That's not.
So do you think that we could erect this sign such that the bottom of the skirting is 8 feet from the ground?
Sure, we could have them add 2 feet more to the pole. Go up 2 feet higher with the pole. That's not a problem.
If we go 2 feet higher with the pole and we have the light on the top, is there going to be spill out of that light in the traffic that's going over the top of the bridge?
I
The,
think if we would add the 2 feet to the pole, we'd be at 8 feet. I think we would leave the light at the bottom then.
okay,
Because then we can use our light study. One little concern I would have is if we put the light at the top, then we may not be able to meet the requirement of what is it, the 1.5 foot candles at 3 feet from ground level.
Right.
So I think we'd have to continue with the light at the bottom.
So just to recap for my notes here, the two options that we're discussing here are right now the clearance of the board is about 6 feet. With the light coming out of the bottom, we have already discussed top mounting the light instead, but then there's still a couple feet of skirting at the bottom. So now we're discussing raising the bottom of that to 8 feet, which would then move the light back to the bottom. Is that correct?
Yeah, that would make the light be at 10 feet, wouldn't it?
No, it would be at 8 feet still. Yeah, it would be at
The
8 feet.
bottom of
Yeah.
the skirting?
Yeah, the bottom of the skirting as it is here is 6 feet. So if we add 2, it would be at 8.
Got it.
Do any of the exhibits, Dwight, show the light on it? Because I don't see anything that shows this light mounted on anything that you've sent me. At least the exhibits that I have. I mean, this exhibit 5, which seems to have all the details of the sign structure, or exhibit 3, I'm sorry.
Yeah, they never put
Shows the details of the light of the pole structure, but I don't see anything showing a light structure connection, nothing on that. And until you talked about it now, I didn't even know there was a light on it.
Yeah, it's in the application
So
material.
I think exhibit 3 should be,
Okay.
I think exhibit 3 should be modified to show where the light is and how it's going to be mounted and that stuff. I mean, because right now, except for this exhibit 4, which is the light study, I have no idea what's going on with the light.
Right. So as RJ was summarizing, so we'll just add that. We probably need to send a revised drawing that shows the bottom of the sign structure, which is actually a 2-foot skirt, which will be at an elevation of 8 feet from the ground, with the sign remaining where it was intended, only rather than being at 6 feet, it would be at 8 feet. And then we can provide a detail of the type of light fixture that will be put onto the sign and how it will be mounted.
I think that would help connect some dots that are missing right now, personally.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts, but there's just a couple things for me.
Do you have
So
any?
if we
Oh, go ahead. Lamar.
if we raise the sign up a bit, I'm looking at the 14-foot clearance on that the overpass of Perry Highway. And again, this kind of comes down to not just the lighting, but I mean, there's trees that appear to be there.
Mhm.
Do we have either an aesthetics problem or like lighting bleed coming up once we raise it up? I don't think it was clear what the answer was on that.
Well, we do have a planting, a plan for the planting, which incorporates those trees. And we can certainly have Brian Altmeter discuss that planting plan. And to answer your question, Mr. Williams, about what effect there would be on the existing taller trees if this sign structure were raised by 2 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. I think with this taller sign, it probably would actually help the existing trees. They're a hawthorn type tree, relatively small. They're not a large canopy type tree. We've supplemented that for this particular sign with a larger canopy type tree, 2 understory trees, red buds that are the purplish flowers. You'll see them come out here relatively soon, and some shrubs along the base to sort of hold the sign down to the ground. I don't think raising it will impact the landscaping and the buffering that's being proposed.
The landscaping plan is Exhibit 9.
And I just wanted to add, since this is kind of like a multi-moving part application, the reason that there is buffering and landscape information in general required at this stage is because the conditional use criteria in our ordinance calls out that it should be landscaped to screen the sign support and comply with C3 zoning if it were to be constructed. But generally, the full details on landscaping and buffering would come at the land development plan approval stage rather than at the conditional use discussion. I did ask them to submit some information to show that it would still be screened, though, to satisfy one of those conditional use criteria. So that's how
That's
they
fair.
got to that exhibit. Yeah.
Okay. From an approval standpoint, I don't think it's consequential. So, okay.
I have a question. Would someone tell me again, who will be viewing this sign? Where is it directed toward, and who is the expected audience to see this?
Okay, so the expected audience for viewership would be those who are traveling northbound on Perry Highway. So just southeast of Vestal Lane is I believe a First Commonwealth Bank, the dance studio. So it'd be those who are traveling north, to kind of give you an idea, just before that underpass there.
Okay, and if I'm looking at exhibit 6A2 and 6B2, these show sight lines looking left out of Vestal Lane. And in both of those exhibits, there is on the little piece of property that I think is in question here, a blue sign of some kind. Is that approximately where this sign is going to be?
Yeah, so that looks to be like an older sign for the park. So that's approximate to where the pole would be. And
Okay.
My dad and I have actually discussed this. Something that we wouldn't want to get rid of that sign. If the town of McCandless would like us to even put in a new sign for the park, we would have no problem doing so if that was something that everyone would like to have there.
What's the distance between the edge of the sign and the wrong way, do not enter sign?
I'm sorry. Can you say that again?
Yeah, so I'm looking at that exhibit 6A2. And I
Okay.
see that, the wrong way, do not enter signs. What's the distance between the right edge of the proposed billboard sign and that sign?
Okay, yeah, I want to say that's probably, let me pull up the setbacks here so I can get closer to answering your question. Okay.
And the reason I ask is,
12,
I just want
about
to make sure.
12 feet. If we look at exhibit 5, I'm thinking it's about 12 feet.
12 feet 8 inches from the
Makes
edge of
sense
the
to
road
you?
there, yeah. Well, they'd be to the front, so I mean, it depends on where you measure feet. Okay, so yeah, if you go back to exhibit 2, the setback plan, you can see to the right, there's a measurement starting at the right-of-way line of Perry Highway, going leftwardly at 12 foot 8 inches. So that would be the edge of the sign and of the proposed billboard unit. So it's going to be at least 10 feet or more from that do not enter sign.
I just didn't want it there to create a visual overload where people would see the sign and not the warning sign that they're going the wrong way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think that would be an issue.
And again, on the height of this sign, since now we seem to have tentatively agreed to raise it 2 feet, the height of the sign will now be 28 feet off of the ground, I presume. How on that southbound ramp of State Route 19, the ramp that swings around and which I believe is the ramp that takes you to McKnight Road, if I'm not mistaken. Will you be seeing, as you're traveling down that ramp, will you be seeing the back blank side of this sign other than for our landscaping?
No, you won't see any part of it. as I say, my dad and I, we actually went out to measure, and we came up with about 32 feet to the top of the concrete barrier.
Okay.
So we'll be at least 4 feet below that.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yes.
Hey, you know, the skirting under the sign, is that necessary? I mean, I know you were saying it's standard, but is that something that's necessary to have?
Yeah, we think it's a nice backdrop. I mean, it's just the proposed billboard unit's going to be black, and so it'd be a black skirting. Typically, you kind of hide any kind of catwalks behind that, the connection point to the billboard. It just makes it look cleaner, and also, you know, we can put our name there. So we want people to know, you know, other businesses in the area who we are, so they can, you know, advertise there.
Do you have an identified client of who would be advertising there?
Yeah, we actually have a local state farm rep who tentatively signed an agreement with us pending approval from the town of Kansas.
For about what period of time?
I think it was starting sometime in July.
And lasting about how long?
It was like, I think 12 weeks. Mhm. And then we actually have a friend of ours, another attorney client that's done a lot of advertising with us. They have done a lot of they live up that way, and they're involved in the community with Bradmore Pine Baseball Association, and him and his law firm are wanting to get on that billboard as soon as they can get on.
I got one other question. Where's the electric going to come? How are you going to get electric service to this thing?
So that would be something that we would meet with Duquesne Light about, and we haven't done that just yet. I mean, typically they'll run from the closest pole and come over. We'd have a mast that attaches at some point, and then they would just connect you know, the electric to that, and the meter would sit right on the pole, so there'd be no other stakes in the ground or anything like that.
So they would come overhead, connect to a connection on a mast on your pole on the sign, and then come down, hit the meter, and then go up to the light?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wherever the closest telephone pole is, they would just, you know, drop a line that would come right to that billboard unit.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. I'm having trouble reconciling the billboards are considered signs under the zoning code, right?
Yeah.
Are considered what?
Billboards are considered signs under the zoning code, right?
Well, so they're actually considered basically like a use. Like they aren't treated like a regular freestanding sign that our zoning code otherwise would.
Considered an advertising sign.
Yeah.
Which is,
okay, go ahead. But advertising signs can be no larger than 200 square feet.
Right.
But this sign is 26 feet high, and it's at least 10 feet wide. That would be 260 square feet.
It's 100. The area of the sign face is 180 square feet.
Yeah, the area of the sign face, but I thought the sign, a billboard sign is itself is an advertising sign.
Well, the ordinance says that yeah, it talks about it's the area of the sign face.
Okay, where do you have that?
I'll tell you. Section 1341.12.
1341.12.
Yes.
Okay, let me see. I have some of that stuff here. I could look at. If you give me a chance, I'll take a look at it. It says 134112A1 says advertising sign shall be no larger than 200 square feet and shall be landscaped with year-round material to screen the sign support. So I don't really see that as being the sign, actual sign itself. I thought the billboard was a sign itself.
Yeah. RJ, don't we have a provision that tells us how the area is to be measured?
Well, not specifically in the conditional use section, but in the general sign code, it does say essentially a rectangle that would enclose the entirety of the sign face.
Right. Or if you have letters attached to a wall, you have to count. It's as if it's a rectangle and capital.
Right. Draw a box around whatever you're considering the sign. Now,
and while we've got a 26 or 28 foot pole, the billboard attached to that pole, I think someone said earlier, was 18 feet tall by 10 feet wide.
Correct.
And that gives you 180 square feet.
Wait a second, the billboard itself it says 26 feet tall.
That's the pole.
The pole.
Oh,
Sign face is 18 by 10.
Okay, so that includes the pole, then it will be 26 feet in height, which includes the pole. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Yes.
the ordinance uses the term sign support.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions? Anybody from the group? Dan, anything from your side?
From my side, in terms of conditional uses, I really don't have an opinion to them other than we just tried to measure what information we were given. And as the applicant had stated, they did provide a photometric plan for a greater area that we could evaluate what really how far out reaching the photometrics were. And they provided that. And it ranges in the, like the three, right outside that rectangle, it's like in the 3 to 4 range, which is pretty lighty, but it diminishes pretty quickly. My question to the applicant is there any requirement to submit these photometrics to PennDOT because they will touch their road?
I don't know the answer to it. I know that we don't require an outdoor advertising permit from PennDOT, but it's a good consideration and it's probably worth exploring putting cutoffs on in some fashion that will avoid it entering onto the road. I mean, I think as I think about our list of modifications that have arisen out of this discussion, something else that we would probably add to our to the list of those things would be a revised photometric study because the light will be 2 feet higher than what was contemplated in this study.
Right.
That'd be something we should revisit once those photometrics are recalculated. But I think that's something we should be prepared to address, the avoidance of any spillage onto the road.
Yeah, it's tough when you have the photo. It would be good to see the photometrics superimposed onto an actual plan that shows all the physical features. Then we could understand where the cutoff is. I can see the sign, but I can't see. And I can kind of judge where it is, but not totally. And I would just couch any approval conditioned upon any regulations that PennDOT has relative to signs within a certain proximity to the right of way. As you know, Dwight, PennDOT, even if you're not in the right of way, they have rules that can affect you outside of the right of way or close enough by.
Yeah, we'll be prepared to address that. We'll look into that and be prepared to address it. And we'll take your that's a good point that we'll try to provide a less abstract photometric study and perhaps one that actually superimposes this information over the actual, where you can actually see the sign and see how it would spill off of the sign.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, thanks for that input.
that's all I have.
Anybody else on the group?
I would like to ask the applicant to, and we would take them up on their offer to improve the current sign to the Vestal Park. Either repaint it or do a new one or whatever it is they suggested they would be willing to do.
Thank you, Dan. I was gonna mention to Jim and Mitch that on behalf of the town of McCandless, that we would like to accept your gracious offer to provide signage, new signage for Vestal Field. So
Yeah, we'd be glad to, and we can actually come up with a rendering, a few different renderings for your approval.
Yeah.
it sounds lovely. Thank you so much.
I think it wouldn't hurt to show, in a additional submissions, just show the relationship of the do not enter sign on a plan, as well as the relationship of this Vestal Park sign to the billboard, so that the board can get an idea of how we're using this 1,000 square feet with all of these features.
Yeah,
But to see those spatial relationships, I think will be helpful.
I would agree.
Thank you.
Including the new sign for Vestal Field too, that Vestal.
Yes.
Yeah, just the whole, what it looks like would be
Right.
great.
Mhm.
Thank you.
That's good input. Thank you.
So from a procedural standpoint, because this is a conditional use application, the town essentially has a couple months with which to schedule a town council level public hearing to consider the application. The way that the timelines shake out, the planning commission basically has a maximum of a second meeting to provide a recommendation, but whether the planning commission takes an official vote or not by either this meeting or the next meeting, the application's got to keep marching, just due to, public hearing legal requirement timelines. So I had a tentative motion to, recommend approving or rejecting. It's up to you all whether or not you want to take that vote tonight or whether you would prefer to table and tender an opinion at the next meeting. But again, either way, we have to schedule the public hearing at this point.
I would think tabling it would be the best. I mean, I think there are a few relatively significant loose ends that we want to wrap up. This height adjustment, the issues, if there's any with PennDOT, a little more detail on how that sign is going to fit on that little piece of property with the existing do not enter, the Vestal Field, the photometrics for sure. I mean, so I think this needs to take a step back to get all those couple of tweaks made, and then theoretically everything works out fine for next month. It should be a good to go at that point, or hopefully would be good to go. But I'll defer to anybody else on the group to see if they have any other thoughts.
I agree with you, Rob.
I agree with it.
I do too.
Same here.
You'll need you'll need a motion.
Yep.
A motion to table this conditional use application based on the information that Rob wants.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so we'll see these guys again next month for sure.
Okay, and I presume that you would like us to make those supplemental submissions in advance of that meeting. Is that correct?
That would be spectacular. Yes, sir.
Oh, well, we like to be spectacular.
Yeah. Well, I think some of them you got. I think a few of them you want to get past Dan for sure.
Yes, sure.
The photometrics and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So he can give his okie dokie there, and then we can, check that box. So.
Okay.
Okay.
For
Thank you, everyone.
revisions to coming, that were tabled and have to come forward again, we ask for 2 weeks prior to the meeting to give Gateway an opportunity to look at everything.
Is it worthwhile to see if there's any public comment on this, or should that wait until?
Well, I don't have anyone signed up
Okay,
for
well.
this particular development.
Then it's,
So, I mean, I guess we could, but usually in these individual motion public comments, it's based on before you all take an official recommending action.
Okay,
Thank you for the
Good.
input.
thanks for your time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, so Rob, we're in uncharted agenda territory for you, I think.
I think I missed something. So yes, if you could help me through the next whatever's on the docket, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. So we've got continued discussion for the next heading. Neither of these plans have votes, or, you know, I wasn't expecting a tentative motion or anything like that. So they are not included on the agenda. Of course, always up to Planning Commission, how you choose to motion. So the first one is the Preserve at Pine Creek plan. I will start sending out those mic and camera requests. This is also the plan that I have everyone who has signed up to speak for public comment. So, you know, before the end of this discussion, I think it would make sense to do that now instead of at general, even though we're not necessarily doing a recommending vote tonight.
Okay.
Okay, I am in process of giving a mic and camera request to Tyson Miller, Krista Kachowski. Did I get that?
You got it.
Oh, I'm still batting 1,000 on these names. I'm gonna be sad when Zoom ends. And we also have Josh Adamek, who I'm not sure if he's coming on mic and camera right now, but he's also present as the developer tonight. So just for some quick background, this application has been in, I think, a couple iterations, maybe one that predated me at the zoning hearing board, and now we're coming back for a revision of this version of the plan that was originally submitted in the fall of 2020. Now, this edition is significantly scaled back. There were 20-something homes, partially a few off of Pine Creek Road, and the rest were proposed to be on a new private road coming off of Minert. That has been significantly reduced to, I believe, 6 homes coming off of a new proposed private drive, as well as 4 remaining on Pine Creek. Of course, that means that the engineering for the various technical aspects like geotech, stormwater, so on and so forth, may change. And I'm sure that our town engineer will have some input for that, but unless anyone has any particular questions for me, I'm ready to turn it over to the applicant.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, RJ. I'll start. Again, Tyson Miller with KU Resources, civil engineer for the project. And as RJ mentioned, compared to the development package that was submitted in the fall, we have significantly reduced the overall number of units and overall infrastructure. So as she mentioned, presently there are proposed to be 6 lots off a new common driveway, which we'll get to in a little more detail, and 4 units off of Pine Creek, whereas previously there were 6 units off of Pine Creek and 23 units off of what was then a private roadway. So again, quick summary there. Previously had 29 lots, developable lots, and now we are at 10. I'm sure we'll get into stormwater in some detail, but just let me give you some general statistics. Obviously, that was a major, was and is a major issue for the folks both in the immediate vicinity of this development as well as downstream. And our relative stormwater, or excuse me, our relative impervious area has commensurately reduced from approximately 2.56 acres to 1.4 acres. So the lot sizes have gotten larger. In theory, you know, this would yield a slightly larger home compared to maybe a 3,500 square foot home that we had previously envisioned. You know, you could have larger homes. These could support up to 5,000-6,000 square foot homes on these pads. And as such, you know, as I said, there are larger lots. So still some infrastructure that needs to be installed. some stormwater infrastructure. So we've changed the design a little bit to have both on-lot controls. Each lot would have its own rock sump sized appropriately for whatever the final home and driveway size would be. And then for this new roadway, we would have 2 smaller bioretention areas compared to one larger pond that we had before. So one point to discuss, we've had several follow-up meetings with the town and Mr. Dizeroth about how we approach this less dense development, and one of the outcomes of that is, as you see, somewhat oddly shaped flag lots, as they're known, to provide the frontage, 90-foot required frontage for each unit on particularly for the 6 units onto Minot Road. And so by laying it out in that fashion, we're able to use a narrower private driveway as opposed to a private roadway. So whereas before we had a 20-foot wide road, now we're proposing approximately a 9-foot wide driveway with a couple of turnoffs. And in general, all of these changes add up to, as I said, less impervious area, less overall disturbance, and particularly as it relates to our application, also we believe greatly reduces, if not eliminates, the required modifications that we were seeking previously. If you recall, at that application in the fall, one of the modifications we were seeking was for the fill slopes to be at 2-to-1 versus the ordinance required 3-to-1. That came with it a variety of engineering questions and challenges, and therefore this revised development does show the 3-to-1 slope that's requested in the ordinance. Also, this reduced amount of development greatly changes the amount of impacts that we have to the wetlands that are on site. That's still a process yet to be formally permitted, but we believe that allows us to streamline that permit process compared to the amount of impacts we've had before. And again, I know we'll get into some specific details, but one of the other, or some of the other items that we took into consideration after the previous meeting, again, specifically with the lots on Pine Creek Road, there was some concern about grading adjacent to some of the existing homes there and how this project would affect that. So by reducing the lots down to 4 as opposed to 6, we believe that we've alleviated that to the extent possible. And as I said, stormwater was the item of most concern. I would say about 80% of the folks that were on that call and provided comments were directly related to stormwater management. And we have subsequently had a phone call with the town to discuss some potential stormwater teaming opportunities. And I can say that the applicant is interested in working with the town to find a solution that the town can use in the future. And so just in general terms, we would be looking to dedicate some portion of property to be used for a future flood control project by the town. That could take a bunch of different forms. So this is really in its infancy. We don't have details on what that is or how much benefit that is. That will be an ongoing discussion, but at least we've been able to lay the groundwork with that with the town to make sure that we can set aside the proper space and design around that to provide some benefit for the community in the future. So those are kind of things in a very broad nutshell sense, and certainly we can get into the details, or if there are questions, we can jump right to those. Obviously as a resubmission, you've seen it all, seen this before, and I kind of just cut to the chase in terms of what the major changes were, but I'm happy to take a step back and talk about certain aspects in more detail, or obviously we have a lot of interest in residents yet again, so we can also jump right to questions if you want to go that route. So I recognize that there's still, some engineering comments from Gateway, and partially that's because we didn't want to dive full in on every aspect of the design if there was still going to be significant pushback or concerns, from the community. So we wanted to at least address some of the concerns in his previous letter. We have received the most recent letter last week, and believe we can accomplish all of those. I believe most of them are a technical nature, even though there are quite a few of them. I don't see any that are really significant roadblocks to us at this time, but certainly, as I said, we will work to resolve all those with Gateway and the town directly.
I got one question, Tyson. I don't have a drawing in front of me, but you had mentioned a 9-foot wide, kind of like a driveway access now for these six, I think it was 6 lots, did you say?
That's correct.
What's
And I'm happy to
the,
share a drawing if that's helpful. Or
yeah, if
or
you
if
could, that'd be
RJ
cool, but my
RJ, do you
main
want to share?
question
Or
is,
good.
my main question is, what if you have 2 cars, one in, one out?
So at each lot line, so approximately, every 200 feet, we have a pull off.
Okay.
So that, so I think there are 5 of those along the length of the driveway to accommodate vehicles being able to pass each other.
Okay, I didn't see that drawing, so maybe it will be good to see that. Okay.
Yeah, RJ, do you want me to share my screen or?
Yeah, I just set you to be able to screen share. Do not pause the recording button up in the corner.
Give me 1 second here. I apologize.
Will there be any parking along that 9-foot roadway?
No, there is not proposed to be any parking, but there is a cul-de-sac, so to speak, or at least, really a turnaround. I apologize, just give me a minute to accommodate both trash services and emergency vehicles. Just give me 1 moment here. This is the drawing I want. Okay. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can now.
No, we can't.
Okay, so again, you can see that we have these 6 units here off of this driveway. The driveway actually connects into, there's an existing driveway. I presume it was for agricultural purposes or something like that right now. So we're utilizing that existing point of connection, and it winds through the site. And you can see right here.
Yeah, I see it.
Yep. So there's a couple of, again, just pull-offs essentially at each property line. It's sort of an arbitrary number. We can certainly provide more if that's a concern, but we at least wanted to get a couple in there because we recognize that that's a potential issue. And as I mentioned, we have this kind of turnaround area for services, emergency services and trash services, et cetera. And
So
then
what is that? What does the width become then there, Tyson, at the bump outs?
I believe we have it as either 18 feet or 20 feet. I'll confirm that. And I know that was one of the comments in the letter, so we'll provide a dimension on that.
Okay.
Again, that can be adjusted as needed, but
just, I mean, 10 foot is kind of your minimum cartway width, right?
well, we're showing 9. That was also a comment. We're open to 9 or 10 feet, and we're just trying to keep it as, again, as much, or limit the amount of impervious to the extent that we can.
Yeah.
But something in that magnitude, 9-10 feet, is what we feel is appropriate.
Rob, I had a chance to review the plan with Dan Stack, the fire marshal.
Uh-huh.
And Dan would like the road to be wider. He doesn't feel that 9 feet is adequate. He wasn't set on a particular distance, but he said at least a couple more feet to make sure that his larger trucks wouldn't run off the edge of the road. There's no curbing proposed on this either. So I don't know, Tyson, were you planning to have like an aggregate shoulder or something that if vehicles did run off the edge of the road, let's say the driveway doesn't get plowed right away and people are trying to come back here, how do you guide people without a curb or,
Sure. I mean, so, sort of, I guess in the same vein of with the emergency services, we could look at a variety of different treatments. So whether that's aggregate or, a grass pave or some kind of heavy duty turf, there's a couple of different ways we can address that, I think, and we can work that out to both your and Dan's satisfaction to get additional travel width for that for both purposes, both for the everyday driver as well as for the emergency services.
And so the other concern of Dan was the water line. Are you proposing a full water line extension to the end?
Yes, I think we'll still need to provide essentially, I don't know that it will need to be an 8-inch like we had before, but presumably it would at least be a 6-inch to be able to provide service for all of these units.
So we will need a fire hydrant somewhere midway back, according to Dan.
Yes, yeah, and
Not
I
exactly
believe
sure where that is, so I don't know if that, and will Westview allow you to put a water line along a private right of way?
we've had some preliminary discussions. We think so.
Okay.
We'll just have to, provide them a proper easement and other information, other pertinent.
Because some
So whether that's
utilities, as you know, are particular.
Yes.
And they want to be in a dedicated public right of way for
Yeah,
single
so
family.
So yeah, we understand we'll need, some kind of a dead end, whether that's a blow off or because I believe the fire hydrant will probably be in the middle based on our conversation with Dan. And I thought we had it shown, but I don't want to flip to the utility drawing just at the moment. But anyway, I think the fire hydrant will be somewhere around lot 8 as shown on this drawing. And then we would have a blow off of the main near the cul-de-sac area or turnaround area.
And the proposal would be to have a homeowners association to operate and maintain this driveway.
Josh, do you want to comment on that? I know we talked about a couple of different options for how this, both the stormwater management and the common driveway would be owned and maintained. Can you answer that question in more detail?
Yeah, we would likely have a maintenance agreement for the common areas and contract with the needed services through the maintenance agreement.
Okay. Well, whatever documents on that, the solicitor would have to take a look at whatever documents are provided. Would the lots along Pine Creek Road, would they be a part of that same association or maintenance agreement?
No, there's there wouldn't be a need for it for the lots on Pine Creek.
Well, how do you deal with the common wall? There's a wall that's proposed to stay out of the floodplain or the floodway.
It's a good question. That may fall under a mutual maintenance agreement.
But I would think that they would be two separate agreements though, Dan, if that's where you're getting at, just because the items that would be the lots 5 through 10 would be party to would be different slightly than the lots 1 through 4. So I would see that as being two separate agreements.
And then your proposal for stormwater management is to install individual sumps for rate control, and then rain gardens for water quality.
Yes, and then and also the rain garden's other function would be for rate control for the roadway itself.
Okay. And you'll be able to get water to that pond. You'll be able to grade it and get it to there.
Yes, so we basically have a collection channel on the low side of the road to get the water to the one pond or the other.
Okay. So you might want to go to the grading plan just so I can, I know there's some contours. The next plan kind of.
Sure.
If you won't mind.
Sure.
So I want to call the planning commission's attention to the aspects of the grading. I mean, they are grading such that they would have a flat area for the homes. They show homes, these aren't the final size of the homes, but they show how they could potentially build on these. But there will be some grading or sliver cuts. I would define them to catch up grade on some of the higher pieces. So there are, Tyson, some of those cuts on the last lot by the cul-de-sac are, I realize I call them sliver cuts, but they go up 50 or 60 feet.
And yeah, and if you recall from the previous drawing, you know, we did have a retaining wall here, which actually might eliminate that, because as I'm sure Dan understands, but to articulate for the planning commission members, yeah, we're chasing the grade up the hill, and really like a 6-foot wall might eliminate that, a good amount of that cut. We were just trying to minimize the amount of walls we were showing. So this is kind of the worst case scenario in terms of overall disturbance, but we believe that there may be a more efficient way to do it if we add some additional walls. But
so then you have a wall that's holding up that turnaround area, correct?
Correct. There's a wall, yes, as you can see here.
Okay, and then the driveway itself is graded right at the top, to the top of the slope. Is there any shoulder or anything on? And that's like a 10-foot drop off there, off of that driveway.
You're saying in this area here?
Yeah, I mean, when you're driving along there, and
yep,
I mean,
certainly, yep.
I mean, I know it's a driveway, but I mean, and I'm not trying to be critical of the plan. I'm just trying to put it in perspective. I mean, you know, typically we stop cul-de-sacs anywhere from 900 to 1,000 feet. This driveway is going to extend approximately 1,150 feet, almost 1,200 feet off of Minor.
Correct.
So I'm really, if I'm at the very end of this road, I'm reliant upon my neighbors to keep their cars out of the road. And I mean, I don't have a whole lot of room that I can maneuver around. It's not a public street. You know, if I'm right at the top of that slope, I mean, again, I'm not trying to add cost to this, but I'm just thinking about safety. I mean, how do I, if I don't have any curbs, and maybe you'll decide to put in curbs, how do I keep my car from going off of that slope and down over into that ditch?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we can talk about adding whether a guide rail or a curb is the most practical solution. You know, for areas where there is a steep drop off. I don't think per like PennDOT requirements, it's not required for that type of embankment. You know, where there might still be a shoulder, I understand, but certainly for the common homeowner, you know, that may be something that can be considered for sure.
If you can get enough shoulder in there, I would agree with you that a guide rail may not be required, but it's difficult to tell. And again, I know you're presenting the concept tonight and trying to gauge the planning commission as to what their thoughts are on this. So I just want to bring the issues out on the table so we're not talking about them again.
Sure. So, you know, as you had mentioned before, in terms of addressing Mr. Stack's comments, I think that could all be worked into it to provide a shoulder, you know, that's drivable for the larger vehicles, but also provides that additional buffer for the everyday vehicle.
I remain deeply concerned about the emergency management of these houses toward the end of this very long driveway. One fire truck, one police car with pullouts every 200 feet. A fire truck, you can't get an ambulance in there. You can't get another police car in there. The fire truck has to stop within so close to the fire hydrant. So, and then if someone decided to run into their house real quickly and just parked on the street, it's all over. We have to watch the house burn. I mean, I'm very concerned about the public safety of this area. Can those houses be pushed back more? I know there's slope there. There's a lot of land behind them, but this road is extremely narrow. 9 feet, that's a parking space, 9 feet. And a bad parking space, not even a good parking space. You know how I feel about parking spaces. We talked about this last month, and a bad parking space at that.
Sure. I will say that we did ask the question, is there a standard for a driveway? And we really couldn't find that there was much of a written standard in the town. There was maybe one detail that showed a driveway approaching an intersection, which showed 9 feet, which is really why we started with that dimension. But certainly, we're open to making adjustments to that to address public safety concerns, certainly. But as you just mentioned, and Dan and RJ mentioned, we're trying to obviously work collaboratively with the town to get this project right size, but to get it constructed. And obviously, we've made an attempt to reduce a variety of different impacts, and we will take your feedback under consideration for how we can continue that process. I don't think, though, that pushing the units back is going to help. I mean, certainly, in addition to each pull off, we obviously have a driveway to each unit. So we could certainly add a little more width at the driveway locations to act as a second turn off without too much difficulty.
Yeah, in terms of the rest of the comments, I mean, we have a number of comments related still to the geotechnical and the stormwater, and I believe Tyson couched that at the beginning that he hasn't addressed all of those in full because he wanted to get a feeling as to where we're going here. So I really don't have other comments than those that are stated in my letter, and we could spend the rest of the night going over my letter if anybody would like to do that, but I don't think it would be beneficial at this point.
And I will say we do have draft responses prepared. As I had said, I don't think that there was anything in there that we had objection to, and so we would be prepared to resubmit to address those comments in fairly short order.
I just have one other comment, and I'll propose it to the developer. I mean, my experience in 35 years in this business, I've never seen a plan with this many lots off of a private road. You see 2 or 3, some ordinances go max 5. I mean, are you sure that you can market this and these lots are sellable in this condition? I just question it because it is a lot of expense. It's there's not a lot of, you're not getting great lots here. They're being manufactured, and I know there's a demand for lots in McCandless and especially big lots, but there's not a whole lot here that you're going to get for your lot. I mean, it's a lot of slope. It's a lot of unusable ground. So.
With this plan here, what kind of tree clearance do we have going up that hill? Because I recall the last time there was a lot of trees that were going to be taken down going up grade. Is that shown on one of these plans?
It's reduced. It's not shown as clearly as I think to answer your question. And as Dan pointed out, and as I mentioned, there may be ways to even further reduce that by adding some additional walls back in. But I know that's one of Dan's comments to quantify the exact number of trees that are being impacted. So that's something that we will be providing in the next submission.
Dan, can I ask 2 questions, or one to Dan and one to Tyson maybe? Dan, overall, the stormwater management plan scheme that they have here is adequate and satisfactory as far as handling the runoff from the non-rock sump water, which I assume is mostly the road. I see the 2 biodetention areas. That's all they need.
I'm not sure that yet, Rob. We had a number of stormwater comments, so I'm just taking Tyson's word for it. And now, I mean, he would have to appropriately size the sumps to make sure that they have enough volume. And then one of my comments was related to the sumps. How are we going to connect those into some sort of an overflow for them, or have some ability for them to get out? And then the other concern, my experience with steep slopes like this in backyards is we're gonna have springs on this hillside. And there's got to be a way to collect the water off of those springs and those steep slopes coming down towards those homes, or those people are going to have a constant battle with water, just in water
Yeah.
that's going to be natural to the site. So those were
Yeah,
a
even if
couple of my comments.
Yeah, even if you don't have a spring, you have this large area upstream of you, naturally sheet flowing to your back, the back of your house. You're gonna need a swale or something there at the base of that hill to collect that water and make sure it doesn't run up against their foundations.
Yeah, and, in the previous iteration, we had a collection channel at the toe slope in the rear there. Obviously, given that we were reducing the number of lots, we were trying to reduce the amount of infrastructure. And again, we're showing a footprint here. The final grading of each lot would need to take account of some of those items, but certainly, we could try to plan for them now as well. But
yeah. And then the other thing, Tyson, can you show us where this potential area that the town would use as part of this? I don't know how this is going to work, but what this would be or how that would look?
Yeah, so it's generally speaking would be in this area. So obviously you could see Pine Creek kind of winds through here. This red hatch line is the floodway, and these dash lines here are the floodplain. So there's a large area here, mostly on lots 7 and 8, that's directly adjacent to the stream. We discussed again a couple of different options, whether it's an enhanced riparian buffer or some kind of impoundment. Again, there's a couple of different forms that could take. But as of right now, we were talking about predominantly this area, and I think we also discussed. Whoops.
Further to the
It's
left.
on it. Yeah, it's on it. There it is here. Some of this area that's on lot 5, just below this existing fishing pond. So that's what we've talked about preliminarily, and again, the developer has agreed to move that forward with the town.
Okay, and how would that work, RJ or Dan? Would that be like an easement, or how does that work on the town side? Do you guys know?
I think that's still
I assume it would
under
be something the town would build, and then the town would own.
That's something that we would have to negotiate. I think haven't made any decisions on that, correct? Dan, we're not.
Yeah, I mean, we're
going there right now yet.
Right.
No, but it would be something the town would build and the town would own and the town would maintain.
We're not sure of that.
Oh, okay.
Is what I'm saying.
All right. Trying to understand.
Yeah, we don't understand it either yet. It's still in flux.
Okay. Okay. Okie dokie. And the only other question I had, RJ, or Dan, is Minard a town road or a county? Who owns that road as far as getting this driveway connection?
Minard is our road.
So there's no HOP, or we just approve that? Okay.
Yeah, I had one comment that, and I think Tyson can address it. We're going to need to widen that driveway at the entrance. If this is the final layout, that needs a big radius in there to swing vehicles in, and it's got to be more like a typical approach to get the vehicles in that need to get in there. Just trucks to build the units, and then garbage trucks, emergency vehicles. So that entrance will have to be wider, and then if they're going to narrow it down, they can narrow it down from there.
Yeah, even there,
I don't think it's appropriate.
Yeah, even there, it should be maybe 2 lanes wide at least, so that if somebody's coming in and somebody's going out, you're not holding up Minard Road.
Correct.
So that you can get off the road.
Yeah, and certainly, other places I've seen, maybe that's a 40 or 50 foot long approach. So that's something that we can show.
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions, comments?
Got some public comment, I think.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna take the screen share down now, so it's a little easier for everyone to see. Before we move on to public comment portion, last call for commission members. Okay. All right, so the first person that I had signed up to speak was Kendall Morrow. I will send a mic and camera request now. And Kendall, if you could please just, I remember you were here to provide public comment last time, but if you wouldn't mind just stating your address again so I can note it down.
Yeah, my address is 10158 Sudbury Drive.
10158. And you can feel free to start whenever you're ready.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of didn't really know much about the development, like the new plan going into this. So I'm kind of going off of what I just heard because I didn't really know much about the new part of it. But yeah, I don't really know how much of the slope is going to be cutting back into like my neighborhood or the houses on my side of the neighborhood. But basically all I wanted to say, kind of going off of what I said last time, is, you know, this isn't going to be necessarily any better for the wetlands or the creek and anybody downstream being affected by the flooding. You know, the best thing obviously is just to leave it alone. And I've, you know, been back there and I see a lot of the flooding that happens just in this general area and how steep the slope is that would be, you know, supposedly being scaled back. And also just in regard to the widening of the private drive, that if that would be pushing back any of the lots closer to where I live at my end of the neighborhood, that would probably, I'm guessing, cause more of cutting into the hill that's there. But basically all I wanted to say is that this would not necessarily, although the lots would be, there would be less lots, there's probably still going to be seemingly somewhat of the same amount of impact to the land. So that's basically all I wanted to say.
Thanks, Kendall. All right, let me see what I've got next on my list. I believe it is the Camaradas. So I will send a microphone and camera request to Dana.
Well, let Sam go first.
All right. So this is both Sam and it's Dana, correct?
Yes. Yes.
And if you wouldn't mind just reminding me of your address, please, for the record.
All right.
530 Pine Creek Road.
Pine Creek Road. All right. Thank you. You can speak whenever you're ready.
Okay, I'll start off with this. I looked at that plan today, which looked pretty confusing. Obviously, it was just preliminary. I guess my big concern is being I live on Pine Creek, they're building directly across from me. And my concern is, which I didn't bring up before, which I wish I would have, is when they do the digging out of the soil, start to dig out for the lots and then have to fill in and compact with a vibrating roller. My scenario comes to be is I'm on a well. My well is 50 feet away from the building where they're going to be building. And the vibration I'm very concerned about that's going to, you know, be involved with them tamping the dirt. I was just wondering, I don't know if this is possible, but is there some kind of a bond that can be issued that would protect me in case something would happen to the well, that I wouldn't have to worry about trying to sue to get my well repaired? And the reason I bring that up is Jeff, which lives down the street, which he's the first house on that side of the road, is also on a well. We're both very concerned about that. And the reason I bring that up is my parents lived on Fairfield Road, which was between North Park Lounge and the corporate drive where Fridays used to be. And when they built that development, that whole street, Fairfield, there was 11 houses, were all in wells. Well, when they built that project and did all the excavation and the tamping and everything that they did, everybody on that street, except 2 people, lost their wells. It took them a year to sue. I don't want to be out of water for a year. So my concern is there something that can be done to protect me in that manner? Having a house directly across the street, if this goes through, I guess I'll have to live with it, but I'm concerned over the construction. Okay, I don't know if I can get an answer for that, but if somebody could at least get back to me and let me know what the legalities and what the township can help me on that, and or the builder.
So, but before we discuss anything about that question, because I think the town attorney is prepared to give a general answer about that question, but is there still anything remaining to this public comment, or was that pretty much the gist of what you were going to say, Sam?
No, I have other things. I would like to know, when I looked at that print, lot number 5 seems to run on the whole top of the hill. What protects that hill from being that that owner is the last house on that cul-de-sac to do anything to that top of that hillside once the project's done? To then it may be devastating to the homes below, being that they own that property. I don't understand why that lot goes clean from the Minot Road all the way back to lot 5. Mr. Adamant, could you, or Tyson?
So as I mentioned, that these are flag lots, as the terminology goes, to provide the required frontage onto a public road, in this case, which is minor. So while there's no intent to do any development on that flag or the panhandle portion of that, I understand your question. Certainly, I think that's something we can discuss, if that's restrictions can be put into place, via the maintenance agreement or some other appropriate measure. But ostensibly, it's unbuildable property there without having to go through a permitting process with both McCandless and potentially the conservation district. So I don't think that it's something that they could just disturb the top of the slope as you suggest without anyone knowing about it or being able to question it.
Well, the question being is if they decided that they needed some cordwood to burn in their fireplace, they could just cut the trees down. There's no permit that is necessary for that. So that's the concern is why that lot is so long. It goes all the way to minor. You're saying that every lot needs to have a touch on Minor Road. Well, what happens to the other 5 lots? They're not touching the road. So it baffles me that one lot's like that instead of each individual lot going all the way to the crest of the hill.
So yeah, both lots 5, 6, 7, and 8 all have those long panhandles, and even lot 9. So that's not unique to just lot 5.
Could you show that again? Because I just saw one going all the way to the lot 5 was the only one that stretched the whole distance.
Mr. Camarada, I'm very sorry to interrupt you, sir, but comment is limited to 5 minutes a person, and you've reached your 5 minutes, sir. I'm sorry. Your wife can go.
Can he speak? Okay. My question would be, one, going back to the last time we discussed, and this is part of a situation where you guys had said that the barn and the 2-story log cabin would be demolished because it is not historical. Can you explain to me why it is not historical? Can you tell me the last time a 2-story log cabin has been built? What year?
Josh, I don't know if you want to answer that, but I know we've investigated the barn specifically in terms of its.
No, I'm actually talking about the two-story log cabin built in the house where many people have lived over the past several years. The barn, I think that's historic, but the two-story log cabin in its original tactic is my most concern at this point.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing in record showing that those either one of those structures have been deemed or marked historical that prevents us from moving forward with the project. So,
But would you agree that they are?
no, I disagree with that.
And can you explain why?
There's no record, there's no recorded record of the structures on the property being historical.
Yeah, I would agree to disagree for the record. The second thing is, my question to you is, if you do develop properties on Pine Creek Road, what are you doing about sidewalks and guardrails and safety of people?
So we would be proposing a sidewalk along Pine Creek. I didn't have it shown in that set. And
why not?
And part of the reason was for that, I was planning that we would only have the sidewalk in front of the units 1 through 4, and then stopping when it gets to a point that we were stopping grading. So there would be a portion of lot 4 that we wouldn't have sidewalk because it would require, adding additional fill in that area and additional wetland impacts that I felt was unnecessary. So, to satisfy the intent of the ordinance, we would have the sidewalks in front of the units themselves. But obviously, since there aren't sidewalks on either side, there's nothing to connect into. We would have about about 100, 125 foot section of lot 4 that would not have sidewalks.
Okay, and what about the gas well and not to mention the water drainage that comes under the property from my house over to which I don't know, it would probably be lot 4 or 5. Lot 1. Lot 1. I'm sorry, lot 1. The gas well on lot 1. No, I'm sorry. The gas well on
is on lot 5.
Lot 5. What are you proposing to do with that? And then the underwater drainage that goes across the street from my house, which is 530 Pine Creek Road, across the street. What's going to happen to that water? And what about those huge utility poles?
The utility poles would be removed because those are there to service the existing house and barn. For the stormwater,
Pine Creek, but go on.
Well, at least the utility poles on the property. There are 2 sets of inlets that drain underneath Pine Creek Road. One drains onto lot 4 and ultimately down to the creek. That's on the portion of the lot 4 that we're not proposing to develop. And I believe the other stormwater drain actually drains onto the adjacent property owned by, if I can zoom in here, on the own mice property, and ultimately does make its way down onto lot 1, but further down into the property. The gas well is as of right now intended to remain. So we've avoided disturbance in the area of that well.
What about the main gas line along Pine Creek Road? Because we've had many times where this road has been repaired due to the sinkage of the gas line. How will that be taken care of, and how will that affect the house? You built this beautiful $400,000 house and they have this huge sinkage.
Ultimately, that's the responsibility of the gas utility. I mean, it's, we would be coordinating with them for any fill that we're placing over the line as part of our construction. So we can only attest to the constructability in the areas that we're touching, but any previous conditions, unfortunately, I think that's outside of the scope of our responsibility and outside of the scope of the project.
Which is a potential problem.
So we have reached 5 minutes for you as well, Dana. Before we move on, I just wanted to give the town attorney an opportunity to respond to the question about bonding of private property.
Yeah, unfortunately, the town does not regulate those types of issues as it relates to private water rights, etc. However, I would personally, I'm not your attorney and I'm not giving you legal advice, but I would encourage you to have a conversation with the developer around those issues to see if you're able to come to any sort of arrangement with them. But from the town's perspective, we don't really regulate those things. They're not part of the plan itself. And so we really can't do a whole lot here other than encourage you all to try to work on that outside of the realm of this proceeding. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you very much to both of you for your comments. We will be moving on to Colleen Lodge at this point. All right. Let me find Colleen and send a mic and camera request.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. I know it's late evening. My name is Colleen Lodge. I live at 10164 Sudbury Drive. My property is one of the properties on Sudbury Drive that is just above the cut that you saw on the plan today. That cut has been on the plan since it was submitted to the zoning commission last year or 2 years ago, and it is still there. I am concerned about slope stability on our property. Our house has already had some movement, and I know that prior owners to our home had to do some stability work in the basement and to shore up the foundation of our home. I'm concerned about the cutting of the slope, the removal of the trees. Those are very tall trees. They're some of them are 100 feet tall, and the root systems provide a significant degree of stability to that slope. I was very concerned about the retaining walls that were being proposed, and that are also now potentially being proposed again by Mr. Miller. I will come and visit the township and try to get up with you, RJ, to have a look at the plans in detail. But I'm wondering if there can be some kind of a slope stability analysis completed, because the material in the area is clay, and you could actually, it isn't just a localized problem for slope stability. It could also be a larger problem where you could get, the entire hillside coming down in terms of the clay once you take out those large trees that are in there. So I would also like to get a better sense of how much tree removal is going to be there. Certainly, if you're planning on regrading that entire section right to the edge of our property, then I don't know if you're planning on taking the trees that are in my yard down as well, so you can do that, or I'm really concerned about that. And I think that as a developer, you should owe us more transparent information about that so that we can assess what's going on. I mean, I love living in this neighborhood, and those woods are full of animals, birds, and so on. And I just like to protect that as much as possible. I also would support what Kendall mentioned, which is putting some kind of restriction on at least some portion of that hillside to protect those trees in that area and keep it as kind of a green space buffer between the existing neighborhood and the new neighborhood. And that is everything I have to say. Thank you for your time.
And I can comment on that. We did submit a slope stability analysis previously, and there's some outstanding comments from Gateway on that. So that's we do have a revised slope stability report that certainly the town can share with you in very short order.
So I'm just going to provide a little bit of general info for the audience, because I know when when you don't do this every day, there's a little bit of mystery as to what goes on behind the scenes. Probably for some people who do this every day, it feels like there is a little bit of mystery with all the moving parts sometimes. So it is pretty much standard practice of the town that anytime there are slopes, significant slopes involved, grading, cut, fill, all of that, that there is geotechnical information that has to be submitted to the town engineer's satisfaction and reviewed as what we refer to as technically sound to justify any kind of grading. So, you know, definitely that's something that the town will be taking a close look at, you know, throughout the review process. But in general, it is standard practice that, you know, this is the type of information that any developer would have to submit when they're working around any kind of slopes like this. So just an FYI, that is part of our standard operating procedure here. Dan Dizeroth, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that or if I kind of covered it all.
RJ, I think you did cover it. We have a number of comments related to the geotechnical aspects of this project. The developer, to his credit, has done some investigation, but there are still concerns, and we are trying to work through those issues as it relates to the plan. And we continue to have comments, and we'll be glad to share anything that we have in the way of comments with anybody.
Okay, are we able to review the geotechnical report as interested parties? Is that an option?
Yeah, so there's a process called right to know in Pennsylvania. Some of you have done that already, I think, for the previous version of the plans. Right now, what we do in sort of the revision period is we typically do digital files as much as we can, just so we're not killing a bunch of trees. But we can either pull up the full plan digitally or request a full printout if we've got enough people coming in requesting the plans. Those plan documents specifically that are engineer stamped are basically considered copyright, so we can let you view but not copy. For reports like geotech, stormwater, all of that, there's typically a little bit looser restrictions with we can either provide copies of reports or let you inspect, and we would just take a look at, you know, the right to know standard operating procedure based on exactly what you're requesting. So the short version is give us a call or send me an email tomorrow and we will coordinate with you.
Okay, I appreciate that. I did come in and see the plans in the last iteration. I was not aware that they had changed. So yes, I would be very interested in doing that. Thanks, RJ.
All right. Okay, so next up, I've got two more people signed up at this point. So the next one is Brandon Schweiger. And he lives at 55 Pine Creek Road, I believe. Mr. Schweiger, you are good to go whenever you'd like to start.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I live at 55 Pine Creek Road. I see that you cut the homes from 29 to 10 homes, but you said the homes are going to be 5,000 square feet. Was that right? Or Tyson?
They could be. We don't
Yeah,
have final home designs, but
so they will be if you can, because you're basically going to take houses, 29 houses that you're going to make 2,500 square feet or less, and you're going to take 10 homes and make them 5,000 square feet. So you're going to get the same amount of damage. So what are you going to do about the public health and safety with all the extra water that's going to come from that property? You know, the amount of rain that comes down this creek, you know, and anyone on here who's seen this creek flood knows that it can flood in a matter of minutes. So all the retention ponds or, you know, walls you want to put in is not going to hold back that water. This creek can't hold the water that it gets now. So you're going to put all that much more water. So if you're going to put that much more space for rain to fall, you know, 1 inch of rain will yield 3,000 gallons on a 5,000 square foot property. Now you're talking 30,000 gallons of water. You're going to have retention ponds to hold 30,000 gallons of water. And if those retention ponds hold that water, you're not going to let them overflow. You're going to let that water come out into that creek because you're not going to let water damage the property up there. So you're going to send that water to us, all the people down creek. So floodwaters, flood the sewers. And so now you're putting sewage, more sewage than what there already is, and debris into that creek. And, that water, I don't know of anyone else on Pine Creek Road who gets it as bad as we do. So all that water, that sewage, all the materials you're going to be using up in those housing plans, building those, they're going to come right into my house. And I have a 4-year-old kid and a dog and a wife, and I have family here all the time. So what am I to do to protect my home if you guys decide, or the township decides to let you build these homes on this new plan that you have proposed?
Mr. Swiger, I would like to correct one thing, and that is we do not have combined stormwater and sewer systems, that they are separate. So we do not have the problem that Pittsburgh has with the runover of that. So I just want to let you know that's not an issue here in McCandless.
Okay.
So it's clean water coming into our house.
So, okay, well, another question. So when you're doing all your excavating and, sloping of all that nature, when there's just plain mud, when you're digging, all that runoff of when you're digging and you have a plain dirt site, how are you gonna hold back that muddy water from putting more sediment into that creek?
So, to answer both of those questions, all of that is regulated by both the town's ordinances as well as the requirements of the state via the NPDES permit. So there's very clear guidelines about what needs to be done to mitigate those sort of issues, both on the stormwater and the sediment side. As I said before, we're required to meet a minimum standard in terms of how much stormwater management we provide. And we've had these discussions with the town about the ways that we can work collaboratively to help improve the existing situation that's already there, regardless of this development, which again is not required, but something that we're trying to work through, because we recognize that's a benefit to everyone that will be eventually neighbors.
Okay, so you'll propose those ideas of yours at a later time then, correct?
No, they're part of this drawing, both the erosion and sediment controls and the stormwater management. Again, there's still permits and review items that need to be addressed, both to gateway satisfaction and ultimately to the conservation district. But there is at least a working framework in the drawings that were submitted.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it's just it's easy to go out and build homes and build nice extravagant homes and make money, because this is what it's about, making money. I understand that, but the collateral damage is it's going to cause all the people who live on Pine Creek on that side have lived there for 20, 30, probably 50 years, and now they're going to look out their back window and see these humongous extravagant homes, which in my opinion, they just don't belong. This is a nice road. It's a nice community. The neighbors on this, street tend to stick together. That's why we're all here speaking. But,
Mr. Swiger, I'm very sorry to interrupt you, sir. I know you've been through so much with all your flooding, but we do want to leave enough time for everyone else to be able to speak too. I'm sorry, your 5 minutes is up, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Schweiger. We have, at this point, one more person signed up to speak. If you have signed up and I have missed you, or you meant to sign up, but you haven't yet, but you're still on the call, now would be the time to type to sign up in the chat. But in the meantime, I am going to cue Dawn Miller. Dawn, I don't think I got your address. If you wouldn't mind giving me that for the record.
235 Pine Creek Road.
All right, 235 Pine Creek Road.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the reason I'm here and the reason all the neighbors on Pine Creek Road are here and the reason we continue to show up at these meetings and we will continue to show up at these meetings is because putting any sort of additional multi-home development in this watershed is just not a good idea for the existing homes. And I get that that's not the developer's problem, but it is the planning commission and the town council's problem. And so that's why we're here, and we're going to continue to show up each and every time. I continue to be concerned about stormwater management. I understand that you're going to put these ponds in, and I think that that's great, and that you're going to have a maintenance agreement, and that's all good and fine. But what happens, 10, 20, 30 years down the line when those maintenance agreements have fallen apart and people are no longer interested in paying their homeowners, money and things like that? You guys will be long gone. We'll still be living here, and we will have that increased stormwater to deal with when we already have a huge amount of stormwater that we cannot deal with. I appreciate that, you're trying to work with the township to try to come up with a plan that's a little bit better, but again, cutting into those hillsides, slope stability, removing those trees, the increased stormwater, any sort of multi-home plan that you put in there is going to add to those problems. And, the neighbors on this road do not and will not think that this is a good idea. I would like a little bit more information about why it is that you're going to have to apply for a watershed permit. There was some brief mention by Tyson, but I didn't quite catch what that was all about. And then if I could just say a couple other things. Here, let me just check.
So to answer that question, any development that
Yes.
disturbs over an acre of land is required to get an NPDES permit. So that's not at all unique to this project.
And that stands for, is it National Pollutant
Discharge Elimination System.
Erosion and Sediment? Did I get that one right?
No, not quite. National Pollution Discharge Elimination System.
Elimination System. There is another ENS acronym that is erosion and sediment, but it's not that one.
And one more question. I couldn't tell from the plan, are there going to be any structures, walls, or anything like that in or near the area that you're considering to be the floodway? The red hatch mark lines that you had on the drawing. Will there be any structures?
So lots 1 through 4 does still have a retaining wall that's outside of the one. It's actually outside of the 500-year floodplain. So there's still, I don't know, at least, if I were to just quickly guess, 25 to 30 feet from the toe of the wall to the floodway line. On the other side, off of the private driveway, the toe of slopes have been significantly pulled back from where they were in the previous iteration. So outside of the one retaining wall at the turnaround area, which is not near the stream, it just happens to be near that little fishing pond. There aren't really any anticipated impacts on that side with relative to structures.
I would just be concerned, and I would encourage the developer and potentially the planning commission, before they take a vote, to go out and actually visualize where actual flooding occurs during a stormwater event, and not where flooding has previously been marked, because where it actually floods, I don't know if it's going to interfere with what you have planned in this current iteration of the development or not, but you should truly be aware of where the water goes. And I think the water probably goes a lot higher than you think that it does. You should go out there during a stormwater event. And that's really all I have.
All right, thank you, Dawn. And I did get one more person that signed up while Dawn was speaking. Well, I think it's 2 people actually on the same Zoom video. But I've got Joanne and Ben Campbell. Would you all like to do one public comment, 5 minutes, or would each of you like to do an individual public comment?
I don't plan on being 5 minutes, so I just
you have up to 5 minutes.
I have up to 5 minutes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, then let's each do 5 minutes. What the heck? I wasn't really planning on speaking. I know I spoke last time, but I'm sitting here listening to this, and I just have, I agree with everything. My heart goes out to, my gosh, the guy down in 55. I live on this road. We're at 435 Pine Creek. We're one house away from Minert. And I just can't even imagine that we're having this kind of a conversation with people dealing with these issues already. We've got the people up the street, well, what's it, 530, that they're worried about the wells. I mean, it's a legitimate concern. And it sounds like when we listen to the legal person, I forget his name, I'm sorry, I can't see the Zoom. There's nowhere to go with that for us as individuals. I'm not concerned about that. We have a public system. But I mean, I'm thinking of the people up in Sudbury. My gosh, I mean, what are we doing here? I mean, imagine all these issues. And then this gentleman, Tyson Miller, every time he's asked a question, he dances around it. Well, we're talking about that. Is it 5,000 or 6,000 square feet? Well, it might be. Might be. Well, what the heck is it? What are we planning here? What are we going to do with the stormwater? What are we going to do about the people who have the wells? I mean, we're dancing around the slopes. My goodness, we're talking about building on Pine Creek Road with a 3-to-1 grade down into a wetlands that, well, maybe it'll hold me even. Well, maybe we'll put a maintenance agreement out there. We haven't decided what to do about that wall. We'll address that itself. I mean, where is the concrete answers instead of dancing around these issues saying, oh, well, we're working, well, we're thinking about, well, we don't know. We haven't thought. It's just very, very frustrating. And I'm hoping that as, we've lived here for decades and we bought here and we want to stay here because we thought McCandless is a place that really cares about what happens to our environment. And we've got a gorgeous place over here, which, by the way, I wanted to address the gentleman's issue or his answer to the historical question. It's quite simply, no one has classified it or went after to get it designated as a historical property. That's the only reason it's not historic. It's not that it's not old. No one took the issue to take the step. That's a simple answer instead of dancing around it. And so anyhow, that's all I wanted to say. It's extremely frustrating to listen to this dancing in circles and not really getting legitimate answers to something that is quite obviously, I think, in everybody's face, but nobody wants to say what it is. We shouldn't do this. We all know that. My husband.
Thanks, Joanne. Ben, you are good to start.
Okay, thanks. I just had a comment or two. I didn't want to say much. I work in the construction industry, so that's how I make my living. I understand that. That means we have to build things in order to pay our bills as well. Just from the broad scope, the plan's gone from 29 houses to 10. So it makes me wonder of the thought that's gone into this at the time of deciding to develop the property. It's just an odd thing to say, okay, we're going to just chop it by 66% and come back. Maybe that should have been looked at prior to the purchase to see what the property can actually be used for. So my only comment really is for the Planning Commission, we appreciate you doing your part to ensure that what happens in our town is done right. That's pretty much it. That what happens here is done right and not just possibly because someone else made a mistake in their planning. So that's all I wanted to say, and I appreciate your efforts in helping us with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Campbell. That's all the public commenters that I have signed up for, well, at all for tonight right now, but particularly for this application. Rob, Is there anything else on the planning commission side that you all would like to do?
I mean, I think there's no action taken, right? This is an information only update. Right? I mean, if I understand where we're at.
Right.
I think several people have expressed some issues. I think we talked, significantly about, stormwater, the road width, I think sounds like to be a potential issue that needs to be resolved. So I think, the developer has to comply with all the requirements of the town, the county conservation district, and all those parts and pieces. I think the community members who spoke all have legitimate concerns that, if and when this does proceed, we need to make sure that we've done our best to address them and ensure that they're protected, as this process goes along. So, I mean, I'll tell you what I like best about the whole thing was the potential, and I guess I'll use the word potential, that there could be some water improvement work done in conjunction with the town that would have some significant impact on people downstream, it sounds like. But I know that's still a dream at this point, but that could be a very, very good component of the whole. Those are my 2 cents, and I'm sure Ted would have done a
You did just fine.
better job than me, but that's all I had to say. Right. Anybody else have comments before we move on?
No.
Okay. Looks like that's a wrap on Preserve at Pine Creek for tonight. Tyson, Josh, and Krista, feel free to get in touch with the town or with our Gateway guys and, discuss next steps as necessary.
Very well. Thank you. Thank everyone for their time.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks.
So we have one more left this evening. Let's hope that Mr. Pool's still awake. Let me see where he is, and then I'll bring him on camera. Okay, so we've got 2 engineers that I see on here. I've sent Mr. Paul mic and camera request as well. To Tom Taylor, I don't know if Mark is going to be the one mostly presenting or you. I guess maybe just do a little wave if you need me to unmute you, and we'll go from there. Mark, will you be sharing any plans or anything like that on the screen?
I would like to, yes.
Okay. Do not touch that recording button.
Promise.
So for some background, well, I mean, this one isn't exactly as long-lived of an application as that last one. We were just discussing this development last month. Garden Apartments plan, 8500 Thompson Run Road, was rezoned around this time last year from C7 to R3. The developer's continuing to work on the plan, has a few revisions that they'd like to bring back for the Planning Commission's consideration. This is not currently considered for a vote at this time because, in addition to there being still outstanding comments from the technical review with Dan Deiseroth's letter, it is still a pending variance case at the zoning hearing board. They continued the hearing requesting more information, left the case open basically to continue on to the next zoning hearing board meeting. I believe the developers made some changes to the plan that maybe has removed the need for one of those variances regarding how close the parking lot is to the building, but I'll let them detail that further because I believe we just got a revised concept that I forwarded on to the Planning Commission members earlier, either yesterday or today. So unless anyone has any particular questions for me now, I can turn it over to the applicant.
RJ, I think I got this today around 5 o'clock.
Yes, that's around when we receive the additional materials. However, the plan that we had last received as a revision around mid-March for Gateway to start reviewing, and Gateway's review letter are on the Dropbox. Although, you know, some things have changed, but those materials are still available for you all online too.
I would appreciate having these things a little bit earlier. I didn't get to see them until like right now, because, you know, it's 5 o'clock and the meeting's at 7. So I would appreciate not having new things. There's enough things to look at, not having new things added at such a late time. I'd really appreciate if the developers were aware that they needed to get things to us in a little more timely manner. So I would personally appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure, we'll do our best to do that. RJ, would you mind sharing the screen?
You have the power to do that,
Okay.
but I can share the screen for you if you would prefer me to do it as well.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure that I'm following how to do it.
All right, so tell me the document name that you would like me to pull up.
If you could pull up the 13445 concept, or I'm sorry, there should be one labeled townhomes.
I have the 13445 concept, if that's the new concept plan from earlier. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let
Let's
me
start
see if
with
I
that
can. Just trying to move my PDF viewer around a little bit to make sure we get the maximum. All right. That should do it. Can everyone see that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not going through everything in the submission, just to abbreviate what we've done here. I'd like to bring you up to speed as to where we are today. Unfortunately, we came up with some ideas to eliminate some of the waivers recently, and only completed the plans late this afternoon. So that's the reason that we weren't able to get them out there. We're not asking for any action tonight, nor are we going to receive it. But we just would appreciate the opportunity to share these changes, which we think are, you know, in the benefit of the town as well as the development. One of the biggest changes that we made here is to eliminate as many of the waivers, and we've totally eliminated one variance, and we've let's say 2/3 of another variance, or 1/3 of another variance. The variance that's gone away, as RJ had mentioned, is the variance for 15 feet from the building. What we did that by adjusting the location of the parking and basically reconfiguring it. We also added, you'll see the difference between this and the other plan. We've added some landscape islands in between there to break it up into a more pleasing look. We've also increased the spaces on all the parking outside to 10 feet. They all meet current ordinance requirements. We still have the 22 spaces outside. We also have 74 spaces inside. The 74 spaces inside, we're still proposing those to be 9 feet, and we will continue to make our case to the zoning hearing board for that. As far as the waivers, we've gotten rid of all the waivers with regards to buffers at the top and toe of slopes. We're able to do that by breaking up the slopes. So none of the slopes are either located adjacent to the property line. They already have buffers in some cases. So we've been able to eliminate those 3 waivers that had to deal with buffers at the top and toe of cuts and slopes. We have created a bench, basically where you see the red dashed line around the perimeter of the buildings. That's a 6-foot bench, and we're proposing to use that as a walking trail that would totally encapsulate the site. We think as a real enhancement to the residents of this development. That would be included in the active recreation area that we're proposing to dedicate. that we had some discussion on at the last meeting. The other, one of the waivers that we're requesting in addition to that, still requesting, is the relief from a 3-to-1 slope to a 2-to-1 slope. And we have provided the geotechnical report that does the slope stability analysis for both the cut and the fill. Both of them meet the criteria with a factor of safety of above what's required. One of the waivers that we're still requesting is the sidewalk. And I'd like to take an opportunity here. If you look, there are 2 cross sections through Thompson Run on the left side of the plan. There's an A and a B. And if you look on the right side of the drawing, there's A and B. And I don't know if you have the ability to kind of zoom in on those, RJ, because they're small and it's a little hard to see. So you got to zoom in tight.
Okay, so can you see my pointer?
I can.
You can't, okay.
Other side of the drawing.
That's not helpful if you can't see it.
I
Okay,
can
so
see
you,
it, yes.
oh, you can, okay,
Yes,
so you
yes.
want over here?
Yes, yes, please.
Okay. Sorry, the Zoom controls seem to want to pop up every single time I get to the, well, the other Zoom button. The Zoom the plan button versus the Zoom the program.
Okay.
Are we in the right spot now?
Yes, we are. If you could maybe pan down just a bit, we can get the bottom section in there. Okay. What this is 2 areas that we cut cross sections through here. We have the right-of-way line shown. We have the edge of road. We have a sidewalk shown, and you'll see that the existing slope there would require, in one case, basically a 3.5-foot wall. In one other case, about a 4-foot wall. Basically, about almost half the site on the southern half would require a retaining wall or a rather substantial cut to get a sidewalk in there. If we could, I have also enclosed photographs, RJ, that I took today or yesterday that demonstrate this area.
Okay, so I've got documents labeled 1 through 6. Is that what you're thinking of?
Those are those. Yeah, start
Okay.
with 1, please.
I will start with 1.
Okay, what I've done here is you'll see the pink line in paint on the slope. That would be the edge of the sidewalk. And this is basically taken from the extreme southern end of the property, just uphill from the driveway to the temple. You'll see the, I guess you can see 3 dashes there. That would be the back edge of the slope. So you can see that there's really no possibility of constructing a sidewalk there without a substantial wall. Would you mind going to 2?
All right. Did that switch yet, or?
Yeah, no, that's
Okay.
good. Yeah, same thing here. You'll see the manhole there. That shows up on the plan. We're not quite as high here, but we're still, in excess of 3 feet in this area above the curb that would require a retaining wall. Could we hit maybe, let's skip 3, go to 4, because I don't want to bore everybody with the same view.
Oh, it'll take a second to load.
Okay.
Still downloading on the laptop.
Okay, you can see it's starting to come down, but we're getting upwards close to half of the site. Basically, we're still, 18 inches above the road there, but you'll see that the slope on the right-hand side is fairly steep. In addition, there's a water line. You'll see that blue flag shows the location of the water line that runs along the property. Okay, that's our pictures we have there. If we could go back to the site plan, that would be great.
And where would you like me to zoom to?
I'll just zoom into the site there. Okay, maybe out a little bit so we can get the whole site. Okay, now that area that we looked at extends basically from the T in Thompson down to the southern end of the property where the B cross section was cut through. We can, let's be clear, we can install a sidewalk on the northern half of the property, but we don't want to be in a position where we put a sidewalk that goes to nowhere or into a dangerous situation if you just end it there and you end up going into a steep slope. When I say that, even if we were to build a retaining wall and construct that sidewalk to the southern end of our property, once you cross over the Temple's driveway, if you're heading south, you have the same condition on their side of the driveway, on the southern side of the Temple's driveway. So the odds of any sidewalk being completed at any point in time through there are really astronomical and very not likely. The ordinance says, that if there's a situation where it's impossible or a hardship is created, that, the town council has the ability to waive this. And we believe that this is a case where that meets that criteria. If you don't mind, let's try sharing my screen again, please. If you don't, there was a concern last time about, let me see if I can get this. There was a concern last time about what the old plan looked like that was originally proposed. And I think this is it. Yeah. And this is the,
I remember.
so this is the plan. And you can see that, our plan it does have a smaller footprint than the original plan. I wouldn't say that the overall impact is significantly less with the current plan, but it is less. The grading that was proposed on here extends to areas of the property that we're not touching. You look at where the townhouses are located, they're up near the eastern property line, the southern property line, and right at the top of the slope, closer to actually than we are with the current plan on the westerly side along Thompson Run. And I don't think we have any units over near Mascaries where they had a couple there. So I just wanted to demonstrate, what we have there, we feel is an improvement over this original townhome plan. I also have, if you don't mind, sharing the rendering there that we provided.
Sure.
Okay, this would be a view from basically the northwestern part of the property and looking southeast at the buildings. Building on the right would be the closest one to Thompson Run. The building on the left would be the farthest one from Thompson Run. You can see the architectural style as proposed, a lot of brick, some siding, very pleasing building. Okay, with that said, I would open up to any questions or that you may have in regards to, our continued request for waivers for the sidewalk and slope.
Anybody have questions,
What do you plan
comments?
for the active recreation part in the back of the building? I didn't really see what you have planned for that.
Well, we're providing the walking trail. We're also providing a picnic pavilion along with some park benches and tables. We're also providing, at this point, we're looking at a bocce court and a multi-use court.
How many people would that pavilion, or are you making arrangements for? Because you're going to have like, what, 150, 200 people living here, right?
Yeah, there's going to be 96 apartments, so yeah, that's quite likely.
Yeah.
96.
No, there's gonna be
48.
48
I'm sorry, 48. I'm
apartments.
sorry, 48.
Yeah.
Yeah, 96 parking spaces, 48.
Assuming that a variance is successful under the current configuration,
Yes.
48, but yes.
So how big is that pavilion gonna be with 150, 200 people?
We were looking at something in the order of like 20 by 25. I don't think it's intended to hold everybody in the entire complex at one time. It's something that you would reserve.
Is that the only outside places that people have to go if they want to be like outside on that property?
No, there's several outside areas. There's one, the main one is in the south central part of the site. There's another one on the easterly side.
There are benches or tables or?
Yes, there will be items in those locations as well. And then the walking trail completely circles the site.
I'm just pulling this up now to sort of illustrate. Over here, looks like the pavilion and open area. And then this red dotted line, I believe, that goes through here would be the walking trail.
That's correct. And then the other active area would be over on the east side there, where you're just above your pointer. We will continue, our hearing continues at the zoning hearing board. We feel we can make a strong case for the 9-foot inside parking spaces. And we believe we can make a strong case for the density requirement with the steep slopes. And we've eliminated the third one.
Have you looked at putting a sidewalk down along your driveway? And then at the bottom of the driveway, basically putting the piece on that goes to the north, which would give potential connection to the restaurant and the other, the little plaza up there, Duncan Manor, whatever that is in the future?
That's certainly something that is entirely possible. We left an area on the side of the driveway, a level area that would accommodate a sidewalk very easily. I would note that we did look at, that was something that was mentioned by, I believe a council member last month, had indicated a desire to get a connection up to the intersection up there. I believe that was to the bus stop. We did look at the Mascari property. There are some objects there, landscaping objects and some grading that would be required on his property to get through his site. But as far as providing a sidewalk down the driveway and turning and going up, that's something we can certainly do.
Okay.
There were also questions last time about potential traffic impacts. Any more that you can shed light on that?
Yes, we have had a traffic study completed. For some technical reasons, I guess that didn't make it to Gateway. We will get that to them promptly so that they will have a review for you. But I can tell you that the study indicates no adverse impact to the traffic in the area.
How do you, given the conditions we have right now, namely the pandemic, traffic is light, how do they do a traffic study? And I'm asking this out of pure ignorance. How do they do a traffic study in today's world when today's world is not what the normal world is and has been?
I can't answer that, to be honest with you. I would
Good
assume
news,
that-
I can.
Okay.
So Dan, after you asked this question following the last meeting, I reached out to our traffic specialist at Gateway and asked him to give me a little blurb as to how this works, during the COVID time. So here's what he said. As a standard and as required by PennDOT, the data in a traffic study has to be adjusted and will be adjusted for COVID. until he said at that time, until he got the report, he didn't know the exact method they would follow. But based on all of the studies that he had seen over the past year, it's pretty clear that traffic volumes are down by about 20 to 30% everywhere. And so once the decrease has been established for this particular area, the volumes that are collected would be increased by that 20 to 30% amount to account for what the differential would be from, you know, normal, whatever that will ever mean again, right? You know, to versus the pandemic counts. And, you know, he said, of course, once he received the report, now this was back earlier last month that he was commenting on this, but he said once he would receive the report, he'd check out the methodology and make sure that all lined up.
Okay. I'm anxious to see the report. It's hard for me to fathom, candidly, that it has no impact, as was just stated, on that intersection. That is a tough intersection in the best of times.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is.
If we add 48 apartments, 96 potential cars into that intersection, I don't know how it cannot have an impact. I would be very surprised if it has no impact at all.
It doesn't degrade the level of service.
I don't know what that means. Right
Okay,
now,
well,
I do know
that's
the
what
cars-
I'm not a traffic engineer, but I can tell you that they rate intersections by level of service, A, B, C, D, and F. And I believe that is a C, and I think it remains a C with the additional traffic.
Okay, all I know is, as a user of that intersection, that it backs up 10, 12 cars in each direction, and how you can add 75 to 90 cars in addition and not have it become more of a bottleneck.
Well, you
But anyway,
certainly-
I will defer to.
You
the
certainly
traffic
have
study.
access to the full study.
Yeah.
Be nice if they
Mr.
would put a rotary
Dyserath,
in there.
did you have anything to add? Oh, I'm sorry, Lamar, I didn't realize that you were speaking.
No, I was just making the comment that it would be nice if they put a rotary in there, but
You know that I was just thinking that seems like an intersection ripe for the rotaries that Pennsylvania is quickly becoming fond of, but disclaimer, I'm not a traffic engineer, so I don't know. Mr. Dyserath, did you have anything that you wanted to add to this?
Given the given the new layout, we'll take everything that Mark's has presented, and we'll look at the new application and get a revised comments back. And if the traffic study is available, we'll comment on that at the same time. So nothing additional, RJ.
Okay.
Okay, are we approving anything at this time?
There is not a vote for this scheduled yet.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. I appreciate the feedback and thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right. Have a good night, guys.
I assume there's no
And,
public comment
Well, so
there, right, RJ?
we only have a couple other members of the public that are still on the call at this point. None of them have signed up to provide any sort of public comment, whether on this plan or in general. Now would be the time, members of the public, if you have anything to add. I think I just saw somebody log off, so I'm going to take that as an answer.
Okay. I think that all we have to do the minutes from last month.
Yes, we've got both February and March. There was just a little bit of a delay in the February ones for last meeting. And
Okay, I
those
know
would
I
be on the
wasn't here for
Dropbox.
March.
Okay,
I wasn't here.
that's right.
I said I know I wasn't here for March, so. So I'm gonna abstain from that. I mean, somebody want to do
Well, let's take them separately. I'll move that we accept the minutes
Visually
from
then?
February.
Okay, so Dan Cordum has moved to do the minutes separately. We've got the February minutes that you have moved to accept, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
second, anybody?
I'll second.
all right. So Brendan's number 2.
All in fa-
Aye.
Aye.
favor? Okay,
And please remember that if you watch the Planning Commission on the YouTube channel, that counts as like having been here, so you could still vote on the minutes if you chose to, just for future reference, if anyone, you know, you don't have to be present with this nice recording that we have now, just so you know.
I didn't realize that. I figured once you weren't there, you weren't there. I didn't know it was a, you
But
could do it.
because you're just approving of the, you can't vote proxy, but you
Right.
can view it because you saw it and then you know what happened. So you can
Okay.
still approve that what the minutes reflect is actually what happened in the meeting. So that's all that is.
Didn't know that was an option. Okay, well, I'm gonna abstain from March because I did not view it.
Yeah, that's fine. Just so you know, just so you know. Yeah.
Good news.
Same here.
Good to know. All right, separately, I'll move that we approve the minutes from the March meeting.
Second, anybody?
Second.
Okay, so I've got
Brendan's on a
Dan
run.
for first, Brendan for second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, abstained? Moi.
Okay, so are we doing this that Dan, Greg, Jonathan, Brendan, and Lamar all said yes?
I believe I didn't hear any say no.
Lamar abstained.
Lamar
Lamar was off
abstained.
too? Okay.
I thought you said that earlier. So, okay, we're gonna do this 4002. Minutes still carry, but we have 2 abstentions. Is that correct?
Yep.
All right.
And then the most important motion of the evening to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right, John. And a second, Lamar. We're gonna give Lamar the second. He was half a click late.
Jumping the gun.
Usually it's me, Lamar. So I'm like,
Can't make
let's
the
go for
motion
it.
this time.
Yeah. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. I'm sending Ted a scathing email telling him he's not falling down on the job.
Yeah, we better. I'm gonna have to check on him. See, I haven't seen him miss one